Hello and welcome to another show of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today we have such guest. Her name is Divya Parekh. Divya is a writer and a coach, and she has written more than 15 books. She is combining her education with the spirituality and selecting the subject for her books. Welcome, Ms. Parekh. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Oh, thank you, Raju bhai. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate you having me.
No, we really appreciate your time because writing 15 books is not easy, and you did that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk about you first, because obviously I know a little bit about you. I don't know too much about you either. So we'll talk about you first. Talk about you. Tell me about you. From your journey, from India to here and everything.
Absolutely. So since I was a child, I've always been interested in science, very curious about problem solving and how to change the world. And I was very fortunate to have a dad who was back then, when there used to be some trees called neem trees, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
There'd be some people who'd kind of come to cut it down, and he was all about it, like, no, I don't want that tree to be cut. And he would kind of sometimes go and hug it and tell those people don't cut it. So very fortunate to have a great dad, and he would help people and then so many times it would be like, my mom would say, okay, I think so some people may be ripping you off, what's going on here? And my dad would say, it's okay, I'm sure whatever is happening, my goal is to help people. So I was very fortunate to have learned from my dad that it's important to help people. And then as I kind of grew into it, I became very much interested in science, moved into biochemistry area, and was very interested in the chemistry of emotions, how the biology and how the chemistry of the body and brain works, and continued from there into university, becoming an associate professor, and stayed into that area. And during that time I transitioned into US, and here also I was in biochemistry and moved into biotech world and biopharmaceuticals, and was very fortunate to have run multi-million-dollar projects, along with being part of creating life-saving medications. And even though there are times that working long weekends, because science never stops, science continues, but knowing that you're part of that big whole system that's providing life-saving medications, and somebody's waiting for that medicine, and you're making such a huge difference, it made all the world of difference. So continued in the biopharmaceuticals. Come 2008, there was an economic downturn, and every industry, just like any other industry now, IT, economics, financial, or whether it was real estate, any industry, all the industries were impacted. Similarly, pharmaceuticals were impacted. Several of the people were let go, and these were my friends, and they become your family. When you're working with them, they're part of your life. So when they were walked off, it just kind of touched something in my heart. I just felt like, okay, is that all work is about? These people have spent their lives, and I get it, companies and organizations are not non-profit, they're for profit, but what could be done so jobs could be salvaged, or was there something else? And as I started kind of looking into it and just doing self-reflection, what I found was that I was thirsting for more knowledge, and I love reading books.
Okay.
Books are like my bane for my spirit, as it is like sometimes sky is to the soul, books are to my soul. And I found that I would like to go for coaching where you can interact with people directly and make a huge difference. So I just kind of put some plans into motion and wheels set into motion. did coaching certification, took a lot of different, like some in neuroscience, leadership, and different conversational intelligence and influence. I took a working with organizations. And as I was going through the process, I slowly transitioned out into being an entrepreneur. And I've worked over 6 continents with thousands of people, coaching them so that they can achieve their dreams. And in the process, as it happened, there were times that, where it, again, like you shared that, it's that you do this. In our conversation, you did this to help other people. So I was like, okay, I'm making an impact, but my message is only reaching to one person. So when I coach, or if I coach even thousands of people, it's still limited. What is it that I can do so that my message can reach more people, that I can create more impact? So that's when the book started coming in. And so I had won an award for leadership award, like Woman of the Year. And based on that, and I was also doing some pro bono work for the leadership. So one of the publishers kind of found out about me through somebody else. They invited me in to participate in their anthology. And as I was participating, that was my first book. So kind of was thinking, okay, I can write a book. And it just kind of things fell into place. Wrote that book. And I found it was a very tough journey.
Exactly.
It was very hard. I would say, it took me 6 months to write one chapter. But then, I kind of got into it and worked with a lot of top different coaches, learning from them, and just kind of got into it. And here I am sitting with you.
Very interesting, I can see that your mentor was your dad. Mostly you learn from him a lot about, is that how it is, right, basically?
Yes, like one of my mentors, and I worked with several different mentors.
Okay.
And when I was young, I used to love writing poems and short stories, so I had that desire to write, and I would read books. We had a really nice tropical tree in our backyard, and I would just kind of take books and just kind of go up there and sit and read and write. I used to write a ton of stories, but never got into writing, because here's the thing, in pharmaceuticals, you're writing as standard operating procedures, you're writing reports, submissions to FDA, and there's so many different things. Wrote a lot, but never kind of went back and looked into it. And it was just this invitation by this publisher who said, come on. And then being a scientist, I'm a person who just kind of dives into things and got to do problem solving, because that's how I help my clients and organizations and corporate leaders. So I'm like, okay, it took me 6 months here to write. I tried dictating in my phone. I tried typing up. I tried doing journaling, and nothing was working. So I said, okay, let me go out and find out what's the way to do it. And I studied with a lot of big mentors, and then one of my coach told me that, okay, go ahead, seems like now you have a process, so start writing. So I wrote the first book, and then second book, third book, and I was kind of almost churning the books out quite quickly. Then he said, okay, let's sit down, let's evaluate, what's going on here. We looked at it, and he said, looks like you already had a process. It was just breaking that barrier and coming into that mindset.
Yeah, I think, it takes practice, and also it takes now it's become mechanical for you, I guess.
Well,
is that true or no?
No, surprisingly, because this is a creative portion.
Right.
One has to be in the flow.
Okay.
And there's a book called Flow by Mihaly. I cannot pronounce his last name, his gentleman's name, but he talks about being in a state where what you are doing and who you are, you become one. You're in such focus that you lose track of time, you lose track of what you're eating. So to get into that mood and just be so passionate about what you're talking about, it's also just not writing. It's about what is the message for your reader. What is that you're trying to convey? Is there a story behind it? Is there a message? So that passion can make such a difference. And for me, that I'm so passionate about helping people that when I'm writing the book, there's so many times that, okay, I know the subject, but you gotta go do the research. What's out there? How many people have written the books? Or is there a need by the market? So I do a lot of my beta testing where I will go ahead and do a lot of surveys, polls as to what are the needs of the market. What do people need? Because it's not just about writing. If I'm in this for making a difference, then I might as well as give people what they want. So, yeah.
So, like, you said that, you mentioned that, it took 6 months to write one chapter in the beginning. How long it takes now?
Well, it depends. For some books, I've written in like 30 to 45 days.
Oh, okay. It still takes about that long.
Yes.
Okay, it's not like a days, 1 day or 2 days, nothing like that.
No,
Nothing
no.
like that.
And
I mean, I understand that, see, writing is not my part of
Right.
my story, obviously, So I don't know, I mean, I'm not a good writer.
right.
So obviously, as you say that, environment, and you have to really get into that, and you really have to kind of, you're diving in there, and you're not worrying about anything outside of that. That's when really it's a passion, basically. You created a passion, right?
Yes.
Right? And that's how when you write it, and then you read it again, change it again, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like what I do is usually
Right.
like when I get in the mood, it's just about doing a brain dump. So you don't worry about like a grammatical structure, or if as you're transitioning from first paragraph to second paragraph, is it making sense? Is like you just have like one idea per chapter or one idea per page or anything like that. You don't worry about it. What I do is I just kind of do brain dump. And once I've done the brain dump, I use my Lean Six Sigma method, because I used to be in corporation, use Lean Six Sigma a lot. And then I will take that and parse the ideas out. So it is a whole process. And after we have parsed the idea out, okay, how are we going to organize it? How does it make that meaning contextually? Is the message coming across? Is that, what kind of a book do I want? What is the framework going to be? It's so much dependent on like, what is your style? So once you have the idea, you do the research, and after doing the research, I use my Lean Six Sigma process, and from there, organizing it and finding the flow and how do you want to convey the message. Like, every author has a different style. Some people do it through storytelling, some people do it through crisp humor. So it's very different. I love using stories. For me, stories are so important because think about it. In our old ages, right? When the human beings just kind of evolved, there was no language. People used to tell stories, and that's how knowledge was passed from generation to generation.
Right.
So our human brain is very open to absorbing information through stories.
Right.
So either, in some of the cases, like I'll use case studies. So if you're illustrating a point, then you use a case study, so that way it helps cement the learning for the reader. Or sometimes I just use the form of a story to convey my point. Because it's, again, think about it, you have acted in movies, Rajubhai, and then you have found that when there's a movie, for example, I'll tell you, there was a movie called Fugitive. It was a thriller, but it left an impact on me because how the character is portrayed. Similarly, the TV shows, they get popular because people relate to characters. Sometimes people identify, and that's why fiction and novels are a whole lot more popular than non-fiction books. So that's the reason, and I think, like, what better than true stories. So I, of course, don't divulge the name of my clients or something like that, but I'll create characters where what my clients have experienced, I put it in there along with the message. And then that can be very much in details as to how things. So, for example, one of my books is on leadership and influence. So we talk about different points, and we also talk about different case studies, that what is happening in real life. So people can identify with it, and people can take it and put it in their life. Because the whole premise of writing a book is to make a difference.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you tell me the story, then I remember it better. But versus you just give me 2 sentences.
Right.
So 2 sentences I can forget, soon. Versus story, I remember it, many times. And then I connect to the sentence that you gave me. So obviously that makes sense. Now, you mentioned that, before you write any book or before you write any book, you don't know what you're going to write about. Is that what you just said? Or am I wrong? Am I not understanding right?
No, you kind of like, here's how I'll say that, you have like a general idea, because when you have an expertise, because if you don't have an expertise, it's hard to write a book.
Right.
So if you are writing a book, you do have an expertise, but here's the thing, like, okay, I want to know that what I'm going to provide.
Right.
So for example, I'm talking about influence.
Right.
So, or let's say I'm talking about mindfulness.
Right.
Is that topic even wanted by people or not? So that's the research I do.
So first you decide the topic. That's what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, because I understood that whatever is in your mind, you first write it down and then say, okay, well, from this, whatever I wrote, what am I getting? And then you do research. That's not how it works.
You got it. I just kind of fast forwarded a little bit.
Okay.
So basically, like, what first I would do is like, okay,
Right.
let's say I want to write
Right.
about mindfulness.
Right.
And then what I do is I go ahead and do a lot of surveys.
Right.
I do research in the
Right.
market, like what's going on, what
Right.
is out there.
Right.
And when people say, you know what, yes, I've heard this, but this is my real life problem.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then, okay, so now I know these are the problems that people are having, and now I go and do a brain dump based on those points.
Okay.
Because
So you already have some pointers.
yes,
Some pointers before even you do brain dump.
yep,
Right?
Yeah.
So now those pointers, you said that you do a survey, and but survey you got to have people who are responding to your survey, obviously, right? And they should be telling you, like I had interviewed a person who is also similar to you, and he's also well, I remember him now, Dr. Rao, and he also has written a few books, but then he also coaches. Basically, he's coaches to the CEOs and all that, and the conversation came out that normally nobody, CEOs are the most like secretive people. I mean they cannot say what is in their mind. They cannot, even if they want to, they cannot, because they have a lot of responsibilities, right? So I was asking him that question, that listen, how do you know that this CEO who you are coaching or who you are giving a questionnaire before, like survey, what you just said, they are telling you the truth? Because it's not easy,
no, it's not easy.
right?
So it's the whole thing. So I really appreciate what you're saying about the CEOs, because here's the thing, like, I also coach organizations.
Right. Okay.
And I've coached C-suite people, including CEOs as well.
Okay.
So it's about building the trust.
Right. Building the trust.
So
Right.
when I ask people, I'm not just asking anybody, I'm not just putting it out there. These are the people, like these are, let's say it could be some Facebook groups, or these are some people in LinkedIn groups where I know that they have been responding. And the questions are designed to see if they are answering something. And sometimes, we are not even aware of things.
Right.
That what they're answering and then what the results come out, that is there a bias in there? Or is there no bias in that? So from that, coming from a science background, okay, this is what they have said, this is hypothesis, but is it, how true is it? So what we do is like, we'll mix the data. So there may be, let's say somebody who's coming from an entrepreneurs group from one group. So we'll go ahead and put the same questions in another group, and then we see, so I've got a team of people where who help me figure out all this stuff as well. And along with coaching leaders and CEOs, I also help same CEOs and entrepreneurs write their own books. So we will kind of look at, okay, this is the data, like, where is it? Is there some bias in here? Is this the truth? And of course, there's always a percentage of error in any, like, even if you go
Right.
for any medications, there's like, when you talk about efficacy, there's plus minus 10% or plus minus 5%, whether any even medical tool, or if you're talking about, the recording device,
Right.
the audio clarity. So that error is definitely going to be there, but we definitely know that, what is it that they're really looking for? And the best part of that is that we ask them what is the pain points. So usually when there is a pain point, mostly people are honest. That's what I've found.
You think so?
I think so, because we ask them the question. So for example, about I'm just going to share
an
about
example,
I'll
little
give you an
bit.
example.
Yeah.
So let's talk about mindfulness.
Okay.
So I don't go and tell them that, oh, I'm going to write a book about mindfulness.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Okay.
So we'll just ask them,
Okay.
when you're stressed,
Right.
how do you feel?
Okay.
And then we will just kind of give them like 10 answers.
Okay.
Upset, uptight, chronic pain, or just, that's just one example.
Right.
Then, okay, when you may be upset, what is the first thing that you do? When you are in a fight with someone, do you yell? Do you get quiet? Do you get a glass of water? So we give a broad spectrum of answers. So usually, people tend to answer those. So that's one example. And then we would kind of say, so this is the problem. Okay, are you feeling upbeat when you get up in the morning? Then do you look forward to going to work? Do you enjoy what you're doing? How are your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10? So these are just, I'm just kind of like, these are not thought out questions, but I'm just kind of giving you questions on the cusp.
Right.
And then, so this week, what we do is that we are looking at a person as a whole.
Right.
It's not just that topic. That how are you feeling? What are your aspirations? In 5 years of time, where do you imagine you'll be? What could you do today that could make a difference? And then that brings us, gives us some good solid points that what people are looking for. What is the pain point? What is it that's keeping them up at night? What is it that's, if we were to give them solution, that it would make a difference in their lives? Because again, the whole intention, the actions is driven by the intention. How can we make a difference? How can we provide them the solutions or the information that can become knowledge and that can become wisdom in the long run, such that they can take that information, digest it so that it becomes knowledge, and as they absorb it, it becomes wisdom, and they can live a joyful life.
So when you mention that, it's a trust, right? So trust doesn't come in a day.
No.
Obviously, right? It takes time, and for example, if you ask me, if I meet you, let's say today or whatever, whenever, but if you ask me all these questions, I would say, well, why would I answer you this? That's normal,
Right.
human being, right? So you must be having experts, help you, or whoever helping you, they must know a lot of, like people in terms of CEOs and all that kind of thing. Because what I was told by Dr. Rao, that they have huge amount of challenges which we never can imagine.
Oh yeah, see, because think about it. A
is,
CEO
right,
is by themselves.
right, exactly. by
They
themselves.
cannot
Right.
just kind of go and be vulnerable.
Right, exactly.
And I don't know if you have had a chance to read a book, Daring Greatly. And so that talks about how you can be vulnerable. And things are changing, tides are shifting. And a lot of things, mindfulness, for example, is stepping into the C-suite. Mindfulness is now coming into schools where they're teaching children mindfulness. And there are so many studies after studies after studies that I could sit here and cite at least. Not off the top of my head, I would have to like,
Right.
give you the links, but there are 100 studies that show that mindfulness works. And sometimes, when we talk about leaders or with people, so the relationship is different. We can talk about different relationships. In one case, like, if you're coaching somebody. So for example, let's say if I'm coaching someone, and when we talk about trust. So what happens is, so for example, is it okay if I kind of ask you a question?
Oh, you can ask me a question.
Okay.
If I tell you answer right or not, I don't know.
There are no right or wrong answers.
Okay.
So let's say, as you mentioned to me, that you're doing this as a public service.
Yes,
You
I
want to
am.
make a difference. So now, let's say you've been doing this for how many years? have you
6
been?
years.
6 years. You're not monetizing it.
No,
You're
I'm not.
continuously giving it. So your viewers,
Right.
the trust is not going to come within a 6 month or 2 months
Right.
or a year. It
Right.
takes time.
Time.
They're seeing you. You're showing up consistently.
Right.
with an intention to help them. Similarly, if you kind of bring it down, so that's like we're talking about the macrocosm. Now you talk about the microcosm as you come down and you start coaching a CEO. So maybe initially, they may not be as trusting as you. However, that said, before they bring you in, either in the organization or in the C-suite, they've done the research. They have a whole team, they've done the research that, okay, for example, let's just take, I'm just going to give me as an example, that, okay, what has she done before? Who has she worked with? What is the reputation? Let's check references. So they talk who they're speaking to. They're speaking to people they trust. So just for example, let's say, if your doctor tells you something is wrong, you trust your doctor, you've gone there, that, I'm going to refer to Dr. So-and-so. You don't know the person.
Right. Right.
But the trust is instantaneously because this is trust by association.
Right.
Because you trust your doctor.
Right.
So similarly for CEOs, if you're just kind of speaking about CEOs, when you can enter into their sphere of influence, you come highly recommended by somebody they trust.
Got it.
So it's almost that trust by association. And similarly, when we are talking about these Facebook groups or we're talking about LinkedIn groups. So for example, now, you interviewed me and you present me to your viewers.
Right.
Your viewers know that, okay, you know what? Mr. Mehta brings on people who will provide value. So already there is an element of trust that I have developed with your audience. So similarly, like with these people, like with the groups that where I'm talking about, and my team, these experts, as you said, who do that, so including myself, when we put out books, people have read my books before.
Okay.
Or people have seen my surveys before, so they know what comes of it.
Got it. So track record.
Yeah, so it's the trust it takes time. So if somebody says that, we'll get you this in 5 days or 3 days, I don't know about them, hats off to them if they can do it, but from my experience, it takes time.
No, it takes time,
And it also takes showing up
Right.
consistently,
Right,
how
right.
you show up, regardless where you are.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that. It takes time, and plus, the track record, your track record speaks for you, basically. And obviously, then people tend to trust you more faster than normal time, right? So,
Correct.
So that's how it is basically. So let me ask you. What we're still not going into your other area of other, because I want to go onto other books also you wrote. Okay, so I will touch that little later.
Sure.
What are the most challenging portion of your coaching? Like, you said, okay, trust is one thing, right? That's one thing. But once somebody trusts you, what is the challenging? Like, how do I open my heart to you? You know what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that happen? What is the challenges there?
The challenge is not having judgment. And that again brings us back to mindfulness. Because the whole idea is to creating that safe space. It's about creating that sacred space where a person, let's say, if I'm just going to throw it out there. Let's say, Rajuba, if you were to come and say that, Divya, I want you to coach me.
Okay.
Why should you be my coach?
Right.
So it's just during first couple of meetings is that the whole thing is that, okay, you sign up, but what's then? What's next? It's about me being a guide on the side. It's about me and you forming a partnership. It's not just a one-way street. It's a partnership showing that commitment. So I usually share that, there are two things. You're either interested or invested.
Okay.
And to me, I can give you an example of an interest.
Right.
When you go and rent an apartment, then okay, I'm going to make my apartment look good. I'm going to do well by it. But you know what? It's okay if the carpet, my dog pees on it, and I'll go clean it, but I'm not as worried about it. Or, my kid is running scooter through the apartment. So that's another thing. But now you buy the house. It's a long-term commitment, right?
Right.
A 30-year mortgage. You are invested.
Right, invested. That's the difference.
Yes, and it's the same thing like mutual funds or marriage or
Right.
any long-term relationship, or even like joining a job, or you coming on as a leader. So this philosophy works in any place in human interactions. So if you're invested, it's going to come because it's from here. So that's why when we talk about a lot of these buzzwords, so to say, we talk about being authentic, having integrity. So it will come through. People, just for example, let's say if there's a coaching and a client relationship,
Right.
and you are there always 5 minutes ahead of time. So that shows to a client without you saying that you care. And also what you're doing is, if you're not judging, if you're really there for the benefit of the client, it will come through. There are mirror neurons in our brain that will pick up things from the other person. So for example, when we smile at another person, what happens?
Right.
They smile back, right?
Yeah, smile back.
Most of the time, like,
Right.
and if somebody's frowning at you,
Right.
then you're automatically going to stiffen up or
Right.
something like
Right.
that. So let's say, so what happens is these are all little things, because what we are talking is just probably 7 to 10% of communication. It's nonverbal. It's again, what are your intentions? It's going to come through what words you're talking.
Right.
I mean, somebody cannot just make it up 24/7.
Right.
The genuineness and what's inside will show up.
Right.
And so it's very much also subliminal. So as you're building through, so if you're a coach and when you talk about what is coming in the way, so as a coach, what happens is if you're truly really interested in helping somebody, you're just there for them. You just become this playground where you're partnering with your client and you consider them as your guest. You take it one step further. They're no longer your clients. You take them to give them that elevated position of your guest, and from there you give them that closeness of becoming a family. So it does not mean that because they're family you'll not have boundaries, but because you care, you're passionate about it, you want the best for them.
Right.
What you're doing is you're creating that sacred safe space.
Right.
So it's almost like, the way I feel it is, not being religious over here, but I'm sure people can relate, like, when you go to a church,
Right.
when you're entering there, or when you're entering a temple or any religious place, automatically you have this respect
Right.
in your heart.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're ready that why am I going there? I'm going there to open up my heart. Maybe I'll go and pray, or maybe I'll connect with other people. And it's just openness. So that's what a coaching client relationship looks like. That because it's a partnership, it's not a one thing that, okay, just coach does this. And for that coaching client relationship to be successful, that investment has to come from both the sides. If only one person is there, like, let's say if the coach is like totally cool and totally invested, but the client is not, the relationship is not going to work.
It doesn't work.
Both of them have to be invested.
And for them to be successful, like they have to,
Right.
Confidentiality, another thing, right?
Yes.
People
Oh,
are very
absolutely.
concerned about confidentiality, right? So obviously they have to be able to trust you to keep confidential or whatever they say,
Oh,
and that is very critical,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. How long it takes? Like, what is the like shortest and longest process? Like, like for example, when you go to create a space in a partnership with a person who you're coaching, it takes obviously it's not in one sitting, obviously, right? It has to be several sitting
It
before.
depends.
Depends.
It depends. So I'll kind of share a story, I'm very fond. So
Okay.
I love mentoring kids.
Okay.
And I'm a business leadership mentor for a robotics team.
Okay.
And our robotics team, I'm very much for outreach,
Okay.
going and sharing opportunities with kids who may not have that opportunity to even know, like, what are robots, what is interfacing, what's programming. So one day we were at probably I wouldn't say inner city, but daycare center, and they opened it up and they invited kids from all walks of life.
Okay.
And there came this girl, and she was probably 6th or 7th grade. She comes in with her younger brother. Her younger brother dives into the robotics kits. Like, we bring robotics kits where kids can build and they can see how it's working, and they build a robot and now it's walking, and it's so empowering, right? Because they build something.
Yeah.
So her brother dives in, and this girl is just standing there, and I see her from far that she's really curious. She really wants to dive in, but she's hesitant.
Oh, okay.
Because now they're all boys on the floor, participating. So I went up to her and I said, you know what? I'm a little hesitant getting into the boys club. Can you help me get in there and help me build a robot? So it's also about empowerment.
Right.
It's seeing the potential in another person. And I could see that. It's almost like seeing the painting that an artist sees on a blank canvas. It's seeing the beauty in the nature, like, somebody will just kind of drive by, but somebody will say, oh yeah, you know what? I see a bear in the clouds. So I just saw that on her face, and she's like, yeah, I'll help you.
So she jumped in.
She jumped in. And we both sat down, and then she just got in, and it was so fascinating for me. It was like one of the most rewarding days of my life.
Wow.
And then I said, are you okay? Can I go speak to a couple of other parents had walked in with their kids, and I wanted to just kind of go and educate them.
Right.
She said, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, okay, so you'll take care of stuff here. She's like, yes. So again, empowering her, that I'm putting her in charge, believing in her. She did that, and I was speaking to these parents, and there comes 2 arms.
Wow.
Hugging me tight.
Wow.
And so that was within a span of 15 minutes. Not even, it was 5-10 minutes. So it just depends on the situation and how things are placed, and just the openness.
That's very rewarding, though.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So amazingly rewarding.
Oh.
I mean, you cannot believe it.
No, I mean, if I were to say, I can say I'm the richest person on the face of the earth. I've had so many experiences like this that I treasure them like anything.
Wow.
Nothing, like a lot of people say that, okay, how many remarkable moments you might have in your life? And I'd say, I could kind of like probably fill up a book with those,
Wow.
Because, and same thing, so when we talk about one-to-one relationship, ultimately we all are human beings.
Right.
And when you talk about how long does it take to connect? So when they see that they can totally trust another person, again, we are coming back with the trust. So sometimes it may take a couple of sittings, and sometimes they'll share something with it's very interesting. They are looking for judgment on your face. I did this, and then they're defensive about it. But then when they see that, there is no judgment from my side. And as far as confidentiality is concerned, we write a very airtight contract.
Got it.
So they know.
Makes them comfortable.
Yes. So it's about becoming comfortable with the uncomfort. Right? Discomfort. It's about stepping into discomfort, leaning into it. So it takes them time, but once they open, sometimes it has happened in 1 sitting, sometimes it has happened in 2, sometimes it has been 3. And once it opens, it's almost like floodgates open up, and whoa,
right.
Everything is just out.
Yeah, once it is open, then it's open. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, then it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah. So I have an idea for you for another next book.
Oh, please. Do share.
My memorable moments.
I will definitely. Yes.
You have just, like shared with us one.
Yes.
It was the best moment of your life, one of the best moment of your life. So I'm sure you have many of those moments, and maybe that will be your next book. That can be your next book, rather.
Thank you. Absolutely, yes.
Right. So I'm sure it will be a book. And it's a short thing, but it does definitely, it teaches a lot to the people that like when they connect with these incidents, like what you just said. It was very empowering a small girl to jump in. I mean, before she was hesitant, and then you kind of enticed her or empowered her to, okay, let's do it together.
It's just being mindful, just being aware.
Right.
And looking at the other person as
Right.
another person, not
Right.
just like somebody, like even if you're sitting in subway, right?
right,
What happens is people will not even connect, like they will just kind of pass you by, like especially one of the places to look at is elevators. People will not speak with each other, so I do a lot of social experiments.
Right.
I'll smile at people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I come from South, so which is North Carolina, and usually on most of the walkways, like wherever I'm walking, I love to walk in nature trails. And when I'm walking on nature trails, usually people will say good morning, smile at each
Right.
other, and
Right.
it's almost like we create a community. And a lot of people said, "Oh, nobody speaks or smiles to you in New York." And I always come and do this social experiment, and I'll tell you, if you smile at people, and even if you'll just kind of say, "Hi there," or "Have a good day," people do respond.
Oh yeah.
So-
You have to start. That's the key.
Yeah.
Who starts? That's the key.
Exactly.
So I understand that. I understand that. And I do that many times.
Yeah.
I don't care. I just say hello. I said hello anybody.
And there's another great point you said.
Yeah.
That you are doing because you want to do.
Right.
Don't expect things in back.
Exactly.
So people don't respond back, that's okay. Because here's another one question I'd like to ask. I don't remember the exact number, but would you like to have $20,000 in 5 minutes in your pocket?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
What do you want me to answer? You say yes? No,
I would say yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I mean, usually, if you were to ask anybody that,
Yeah.
okay, hey, you know what,
Yeah.
you want $1 million in a day?
Right.
Most of the
Everybody say
people
yes.
would say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And how does that work out? You're like, okay, how am I going to get $1 million? So
Right.
here's what I'm going to say. When we are babies and toddlers, we smile approximately anywhere between, I don't have the exact number, but anywhere between 380 to 420 times a day.
Oh wow.
And as we get adults, our smiling frequency goes down by
Down.
so much. Like
Right.
we probably
Right.
smile, I don't know, I don't have the exact number, 40 to 60 times. So every time you smile, the brain benefits, and it will release those endorphins, it will release happy hormones. I'm not going to go into
Happy
details
hormone.
about
Right.
hormones, I just
Right.
call them
Right.
happy hormones.
Right.
So if you were to have $20,000 in your pocket, and the happiness you'd get the same equivalent amount with a smile. So why not smile more
Right.
times in a day, and you can keep on collecting the money, right? Because why do we go on vacation?
Right.
Why do we go buy a nice car,
Right.
Or why do we go buy something that's name brand?
Right,
Oh,
right,
I
right.
want to get.
Right.
Or for ladies, they're going for some name brand
Right.
wallets, or for men like Gucci perfume. I mean, there's so many. What's the reason?
Right.
It's the feeling associated with it.
Right.
I got this. I put on this perfume. It makes me feel good. So this is just simple. It's about human connection. See another human being, and if you smile, you can be a multimillionaire in a week.
There you go. Yeah. No, makes sense. So the moment that kind of turned your life around is the people, when they got laid off. That
Yes.
was the moment that turned your life around. Before you were like any other person working full time and coming home and doing whatever. I mean, obviously, we were a little different than other people normally. I mean, mostly people do different things,
Yeah.
right? But that moment kind of changed your total life, basically.
Yeah, you're
That you
absolutely
saw all these
right.
people laid off, and then you realize, what is there to, what is the relationship and things like that, correct?
Yeah, because these were my friends, like so many times
Right.
we would be making medicines, right? And it's a biotech, biopharmaceuticals, that's it's science, it runs continuously. So you're out there, you're running a project. When you're leading a project, you got to be there to make decisions.
Right.
Things go wrong, or you got to provide your
Right.
expertise. And these are people you hang out with. They become
Right,
your
right.
family.
They're-
So
yeah,
they're just not
exactly.
people being walked off.
Right.
This is your family being walked
Right,
off, and I'm like, okay.
So that's when you
That's when it just something happened, and
something
it was a
happened,
turnkey.
and then okay,
Yep.
now that's when you started focusing on other things,
Yep.
including writing,
Yep.
right? Yeah, very interesting. I really feel like it's very interesting, and definitely you never know when one's life can change, you never know. Depending on different events in life, people change a different way.
Right.
Right. So agree with you. Right. Yeah. So now you have authored approximately 15 books. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, can you talk to us about? I'm not talking about this now, but talk to us about 14 books that you wrote before. What were the like, if you can generalize. We don't want to go into too much detail, but like generalize the topic of the books, if you can.
Absolutely. So they're mostly on 3 different categories. One is on leadership, because obviously, for me, I believe that leadership is without title. You don't need to be somebody like a director or CEO to be a leader.
Right.
Anybody can be a leader anywhere. So I'll share another story with you.
Right. Okay.
This is about Mr. Sunny.
Okay.
So, when kids are young, you are going to drop them off at school.
Right.
And as you're dropping off, this is a wonderful gentleman, crossing guard, Mr. Sunny. And it was not his name. He got this handle or this nickname by people. So he would just sit there. And as he was helping kids cross the road or parents cross the road, any car that would go by, just wave and smile. Rain, shine, snow. Of course, in North Carolina, we don't get as much snow. But sometimes you can get bitter cold, biting cold, and rain. Didn't matter.
He's there.
He would be there and always smiling and always waving. And for me, Raju, that was so amazing. How can a person day after day, this is again, I'm talking about showing up. So to me, you can make such a huge difference. And I would, always, sometimes in Christmas, I would take cookies for him, and of course I always took gifts for him, but I always would have conversations with him, and I'd ask him, how do you keep this sunny attitude? He said, what's there not to? I got another day in life. I am hanging out with these wonderful kids who come and give me a hug. People wave back at me. Life is beautiful. And for me, he's a leader. Because look at this, he's leading by example. No matter what, think about it. So many of us, it gets a little bit warm after, it's bitter cold, right? Spring comes in, oh yay, nice. Oh, then there's allergies. Oh my goodness, I like springtime, but there are allergies. All right, from spring it gets a little warm. Okay, I'm ready for a little heat. Oh, it's too hot. From the heat, oh, it's too cold. So if you kind of look at the general mainstream of people, there's always something to complain about. And this gentleman, in so many of my conversations, never a complaint. And I knew okay, it's been pouring hard, the guy's drenched. And sometimes I'd just pick up a cup of Starbucks coffee for him, I knew what he liked, and give it to him, and he'd be so appreciative. But for me, that's a leader. He's showing up consistently, he cares for other people, and he leads by example. And his joy was contagious. So a lot of books are on leadership.
Okay.
So, about critical thinking, negotiations, and leadership and influence, mindfulness. And then there are books on stories where we have pulled together anthologies. So when I talk about anthologies, is stories of women who have gone through a lot of tough times. It could be abuse, it could be health issues, having cancer. So a lot of those, pulling those together. And the third category is around entrepreneurship. Because because I moved into entrepreneurship, I strongly feel that we can have entrepreneurial spirit inside the corporations. It's not just about coming and doing the job.
Right.
It's okay, you know what, I'm here. How can I make things better? Okay, you know what, this task takes 15-20 minutes. Maybe I can make it better by implementing this solution. Or looking even around and okay, how about the company's vision? What are the company's goals, or what about my colleagues? Like this department, always this department gets, so for example, quality control, quality control always gets the things in the last. They get the short end of the straw.
Right.
So rather than waiting, okay, what could we do so that they could benefit? So you can bring an entrepreneurial spirit inside the corporation. And of course, entrepreneurs, I really believe, because entrepreneurs is a breed that's not just out there who's working 24/7 because they like to work for 24/7. It's because they're passionate.
So let me ask you this:
Sure.
Is this entrepreneur by birth, or it is like you can evolve as an entrepreneur later in the life? What is your experience about it? Like, some people they say they are born entrepreneurs, and some people are like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, what is your experience about this?
My experience is when you change, you're passionate, and if you're determined and if you work with the right strategy, I've seen people being born entrepreneurs who have been doing entrepreneurship from the beginning. I've seen people who have just had a change of heart and gone into entrepreneurship. So it can happen anytime.
So there's nothing like, some people are like, when you see the quality when they are
Right.
even bringing up, right? They are growing. You see the quality in them to be an entrepreneur. They are always like curious. They are always like trying to find new ways, or they are always trying to, entrepreneur is basically, running a business. They are always trying to see profit, like, selling lemon juice in the street or whatever. I'm just guessing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are, those people are like you see from the beginning. Is that you see it that way, or you don't? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. To me, there has to be, I call it a triangle, my
Okay.
triangle, where it's passion.
Okay.
And along with passion, you gotta have a purpose. The bigger picture, so like from a 30,000 foot view, or 30,000 feet view. I think so. It's a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
That what is your purpose? What is your life's goal?
Right.
And so now you have a purpose. What is fueling it? What's going to motivate it is your passion. Like, what is it that makes you get out of bed?
Right.
Okay, I'm not going to put snooze on my alarm when it goes off in the morning. I'm just going to spring out of my bed. What is that passion that's driving me? And when you have that passion and purpose, there's a third element of performance. Because when you're, so there's something like emotions called peak performance emotions. And they're like, optimism, confidence, enthusiasm, tenacity. So when all these four come together, your performance will automatically be high. So you're performing at a higher level because think about it. If you're confident about something, you're going to show up well.
Right.
You are going to be more open.
Right.
Because it's not only, this is a proven science,
Right.
but what happens is that your awareness is more when you're in the peak performance emotions. And also, because your awareness is more, you're open to possibilities. And because you're open to possibilities, you're able to do different things. So the way I see it is that there is no certain thing that will help you go through it. So when you have these three things, purpose, passion, and performance, profitability and partnerships will evolve on its own.
Got it.
It's almost like a side effect of having
Got it.
this entrepreneurial spirit.
3 P's will lead to 2 P's,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and it can lead to more P's.
More
There's,
P's, but it
I
is 2
always say
P's.
that it's all flexible. We are in
Right.
flux. There's no
Right.
set boundaries. I mean, of course, there is some
Right,
structure.
right,
We
right.
cannot live without structure. For example, if you were traveling down the road and if there were no speed limits, it would be a chaos and disaster. So there is structure,
Right.
but I always share that within structure comes freedom.
Success and failure. Obviously, entrepreneurs do face any of them. Like many of these people, entrepreneurs, many times they fail before they succeeded, really. Once people fail a couple of times, obviously, it's a setback.
Absolutely.
So what is the quality of a leader that, you can relate to in terms of failure?
So few qualities that I can touch upon is, so one is that failure, you don't see it as a failure.
Okay.
Success and failure. So think about it. Coin, right? Coin has two sides. One is head, one is tail.
Right.
But it's the same thing. You are the same person.
Okay.
What defines you? It's again your definition of success. To me, failure is the fertile ground for planting the seed of your tomorrow.
Got it.
And if you take a, okay, so what if I failed?
Yeah.
What can I learn from it?
Exactly.
what can I do
Yeah.
so what worked, what did not work.
Right.
It's the thing, like, after every different project, you take lessons from that and you move on. So similarly, when it comes to you, rather than being hard on yourself,
Right.
be compassionate that, okay, I cannot perform at 100% all the time. Even the computer, we gotta change the computer every couple of years. We gotta change our phones or machines. So for
Right.
that matter, we are human beings.
Right.
So when you take a look at failure, that failure gotta happen. And I think it was Marshall Goldsmith who said, fail fast.
Right.
So the faster you fail, the faster you're going to learn
Yep.
what's not working.
Right. Right. And then faster you will success.
And faster you'll success. And another thing is that so many times what happens is, I don't know if you have heard of Brian Tracy.
No.
Okay, so I'll just kind of share. Brian Tracy is one of my heroes. He's one
Okay.
of the leadership
Okay.
gurus out there.
Okay. Okay.
So going back to again stories, I was attending a business conference, and I was a pretty novice coach. I thought I was a novice coach because yes, I had a lot of good background and solid information and solid technical background from pharmaceuticals, but to me, I was a new kid on the block. I'm sitting on this round table. There are 7 or 8 other coaches, and the way they were talking, it sounded like they had $1 million practice, coaching practice, doing very well for
right,
themselves in LA, and we're sitting there and just kind of introducing and sharing stories about ourselves. And I very proudly said, yeah, I've got 2 coaches. And they just kind of looked at me and said, oh, she needs a coach? What kind of a coach she is? So it was very interesting. This invisible wall went up. So where I was, one of them, and I was sitting on the outside. It's very interesting how human beings can just kind of, be so wonderful. They can embrace each other, and at the same time, they can just kind of shun you. I'm like, okay, fine, as a mindfulness practitioner, and that's what they think. And maybe, I'm still on the learning curve. It's okay. I like to learn from others, and one of my teachers actually mentioned that, if you have a coach,
Right.
then you're not making the same mistakes that they have made.
Right. Right.
So just because you're taking coaching certification, your journey of learning does not end here.
Right. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I learned was that, I'm a lifelong student. I'll always be learning.
Right.
I know something, and
Yep. Yep.
I'm going to be continuously learning. So I'm going to hire coaches. So one was for my personal mindset coach, and one was a business coach.
Right.
So fine, I'm like, okay, this is going on great. And then Brian Tracy was going to come on stage. And Brian Tracy is like an icon. He's a legend in our circles, in leadership circles. He comes on stage, everybody's, it's pin drop silence, people are paying attention because it's again when we talk about
Right.
trust, because
Right. Right.
here's a legend who's sharing about his life.
Right.
He has spoken in, I don't know, like so many 5,000 speeches and spoken to hundreds and thousands of people. I don't have the stats. And he's talking, and he's at the top of his game. And then he says, I've got 7 coaches.
Oh.
So he, at the top of his game, he who's at like top 5% of people, he's sharing that he's got 7 coaches. So what I took was, I'm not doing too good. I need to hire 5 more coaches.
There you go. There you go.
I'm not there yet. Like, of course,
Right,
it
right,
takes investment
right.
to invest
Oh,
in
yeah,
a
yeah,
coach.
absolutely,
I'm like, okay, when I get to his level, I'll hire more coaches.
Right. Right. Right.
So that way I can learn faster because I have that
Right.
thirst for learning
right,
and
right.
improving myself. And it was just interesting. Like the rest of the coaches on the table, they would not take a look at me. It was like, before there was this wall, and now the wall had fallen. But I was just kind of there, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
We all have different perspectives.
Right,
So
right.
going back to failure is that accepting people as they are.
Right.
And they were fine. And during lunchtime we talked. I did not bring out the topic, nothing. And they didn't bring out. And with a couple of them, I'm still friends of today, and good, solid relationship.
Good. 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 Yeah. Let me ask you this now. Are you spiritual?
Yes, I'm spiritual.
You are. How does that help you in your profession?
So that again goes
Like,
back.
for example, I mean,
Sure.
whatever you told me, like, it's somehow it relates to your education background and spirituality.
Yep.
The way I understand it. Okay, maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
But is that
Yeah.
true?
It is true. And so many people, like when we talk about spirituality, it's like,
Right.
it's a taboo. I don't want to talk about it. It's scary.
Right.
How can we be spiritual? Or, spiritual means being religious, or if you're religious, you're not going to accept other people. To me, I was very fortunate to have learned meditation. Being advantage of being born in India, very fortunate to have learned it at a young age.
Okay.
And doing meditation over different years. To me, spirituality is being compassionate. Knowing that another person is the same as you. Think about it. We are connected. Even though we may not be related, so to speak, we may not be a family, or we may not know each other. But same thing, as I want happiness, you want happiness. I don't want pain and suffering, you don't want pain and suffering. Of course, if there is somebody who's like that, who doesn't want it, then I don't know what to say, but I'll say that peace on them. But mostly human to human, we all share same things.
Right.
If we have family, we want to bring joy to people, we all want to make an impact, we want to belong to a worthy cause.
Right.
So to me, that's spirituality. And when you come from that place, you're accepting of people. You just accept them where they're at. So it's very much like, this flower, let's say if it is a yellow, that's no more beautiful than the other flower, or that blue that you have in the back. Everything is unique and brings its own quality and experience and story to the table. So if we appreciate that person or thing, so if we can accept different, how should I say, like a cactus, right? You may have a cactus, you may have fawn. If you can accept nature as it is, then why not people?
Right.
And to me, nature has been a big, big teacher. So I love walking in the woods. Something I was very fortunate, my mom used to love nature, so we used to watch National Geographic together when I was a kid, and appreciating nature. So I always see, so many times I'll take my clients for a walking coaching session.
Okay.
And going back to one of the other stories, not to give her name out, she was having a really tough time in the corporate life. Like this politics, and politics was going on. There's so much politics that it was crazy for her, and I could relate to that. And then I told her, okay, let's just walk through the woods and tell me what you see here. And what she said was that, and of course this is after a couple of sessions, so she kind of knew me, and so she knew where I was driving at. She said, yeah, they're different trees. I'm like, great. What else do you see? She says, they grow beside each other and they know how to live with each other. They find that harmony. So it was just amazing. She had that shift in perspective that, these are people. Are they out to get me? Because that was her thought was, are they out to take my position?
Right.
Are they out to besmirch me? Or, what's their agenda? She doesn't know.
Right.
She let it go. And yes, there were a few people who were really doing that, but within a year, there was just kind of shift in her relationship with people. It took time, of course, it took her time to grow as well.
Right.
She moved into a different department and is very happy.
Good, very good. Now let's talk about this your latest book, Influencer, right? So tell us about the book. How did you come up with the idea, and what is in this book? I haven't read it, obviously.
No, thank you for asking me. So what brought it on is the environment we are in today. It's so many times, what happens is a lot of people sit there, they take a look at politicians, or they take a look at people on social media, influencers, that, this is the influencer who has maybe 100,000, 200,000 following on social media, they're influencers. And the whole environment where we are kind of moving away from human to human connections. What I feel is that even though there are unprecedented opportunities, the human to human connection has weakened. And there is more distance than closeness. And also it always is like, okay, what? It's not my problem. Okay, somebody else will take care of it, whether it's environment. So much plastic out there, and of course I could go on it forever. I'm a earth proponent, because to me nature gives us so much, and then we are finding that so many acres and acres of forest are getting deforested, and when you take a look at sharks and so many animals just kind of getting species and species wiped off the face of the earth right now as we speak. So to me, the idea came about as influence. So when we talk about persuasion and influence, persuasion is used maybe in conversations, in corporations. In persuasion, both the parties can make a free choice. So I present you the case that this is the thing, you make an informed decision, and then you say, okay, I want to do it or not do it. But to me, influence is something when you live it. And when you live it, just by your leading by example, going back to Mr. Sunny's story, Mr. Sunny did not tell me that you got to do something to help others, or you got to bring joy to other people. But because he would wave at me, I'm like, okay, what can I do?
Right.
So, after dropping off the kids, I would just kind of go in the elevator. It's Monday morning and everybody's like, oh, it's Monday.
Right.
And I'd just smile at them. No judgment, nothing. And by the time they left, or if they had something to say, I would take a moment to listen to them. So that is influence. And anytime I would see a new employee in the building, I'd welcome them and make them feel at home. And what's interesting was that I was just following what Mr. Sunny was doing. And then what I was doing, a couple of newcomers and a couple of other people said that, you know what, you always smile when we see you on Monday or Tuesday. So now we go and smile, so that way it's nice. So to me, that is influence. And think about the ripple effect. When we throw a tiny stone in the lake, you see the ripples reach out. And now let's take this ripple effect and think about if everybody, I see an influencer in everyone. Each of us has a group of people around us. Doesn't have to be millions, like influencers that we talk about social media, that let's say if somebody like Kardashian posts something and millions of people follow that. So it's not just that they can bring about a change. Every one of us can bring about a change. So think about it, if every one of us thought in that perspective, and every one of us did something, you don't have to spend money, time, or resources. It could just be like, okay, you know what? My goal is I'm going to teach my kids to recycle. I'm going to recycle all the time. I'm going to cut down on my waste. So you're still impacting the planet without doing anything. I mean, you're just living your life, just bringing small tweaks. So when you're doing it, you may have guests come in your house. They will see you what you're doing. You will impact them somehow. And I'll tell you like a story that impacted me. I was going back, probably, I'm not sure, from Chicago back to North Carolina. And usually I'm very mindful, I'll not buy plastic water bottles on airports. So that way I'm avoiding purchasing. So I'll drink from the water fountain. But I saw this fellow passenger, and we got to talking, and she pulls out this bottle, the regular water bottles, the metal water bottles, drinking water from it. And I'm just kind of looking at her, and she said that she kind of like saw that something was going on, something was on my mind, and she said, I just empty out the water bottle, I bring through customs, because, or if I'm traveling internationally, or I bring through security if I'm traveling on domestic airline. So the water goes in, I fill it up with filtered water from the hotel or from the airport. There is a water fountain. So she has cut down on using plastic water bottles totally. She did not have to tell me what to do, because I'm aware I want to do something about climate. I did that. So I followed it. So to me, it's about that kind of an influence. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a CEO and to make a difference that you gotta turn around all the employees, only CEO can do, only a director can do. What I'm saying is that everyone can do, because I do see an influencer in each and every one of you. So that's where the idea for this book came about. And of course, now does that mean it's all about mindset? There's some about mindset, And there's also about how can you bring your message to masses. How can you use the platforms that are around there? So it's a mixture of both. You very cleverly, you're a very, very intelligent person, Rajubai, and you said that, I combine spirituality along with my coaching or my science. So same thing I've done in the book, where we have brought both the elements together, that because you got to be practical.
Right.
You just can't say that I'm going to meditate and take no action.
Right. Today's world.
So in today's world, you got to bring skill set, you got to bring action set, and you got to bring mindset. And when you bring these three things together with the right strategies, you can become an influencer, and that's what the book is about.
Oh, okay. So everyone has something to offer, but you don't worry about other people are doing it or not. You do it yourself.
Yeah.
You start it yourself, and that will make a difference. Some people will see it, and they will start doing it that way also.
Yes.
And then you become an influencer.
Yep. And if you desire to take it one step further, that you want to say, hey, you know what, I want to step it up.
Right.
Then you go and share your message, like I'm doing here, right? I'm taking the time here.
Right.
I've written a book. So, and I'll be very honest, like, when you write books, so much investment goes into it that sales of the book does not bring back that much amount of money.
Right.
But for me personally, because I want to share with people that I'm out here to impact, it's again how I show up. Profits from my book go to kiva.org.
Okay.
So if any of your viewers are looking in, KIV as in Victor A.org, and these are global entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And I'd love to share another story with you, if I may.
Okay.
So there's this, what you do is, it's a microfinancing organization.
Right.
And you give them loans. You go online, you pick out, whose story you're connecting with. So I just go around and I like to give it to entrepreneurs or farmers. This wonderful lady in South Africa, she just had asked for a loan for $1,000.
Okay.
Not a lot, and a lot of people come together. So I'm not just saying that I'm doing it myself, but it is a lot of people coming together and giving a loan. She got a loan. She got good food for her cow, and because she got good food for her cow was giving good milk. She was able to sell more milk, and she was able to put her kids into private school, good school. They were making more money, and the manure was of good quality, and that went into her coffee plantation, and that coffee plantation was giving good quality coffee. So overall, just think about it, a small loan,
Effect.
yes, could make such a huge difference.
Right. Yeah.
So that's again, I want to show that it's not only about, you can take it a step further very easily. And if you don't have time or desire to do it, just bring it in your life. So it can be done from a small scale to a massive scale.
Where can one get the book?
So people can purchase the book on Amazon. There is Kindle book, as well as a paperback.
Okay, so Amazon is the one, right? Amazon, they can type in your name, or they can type in the name of the book.
Yep.
And they'll find it over there. Right? Yep. Okay, well, it's very nice of you to come here and share with us your life journey and turning point, and writing 15 books is not an easy task. I cannot write even one page, so congratulations.
Thank you.
On doing all this work, good, wonderful work, and that probably helps a lot of people, and already helped a lot of people, and we wish you lots of luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here, because my goal is to help as many people as we can. And think about it.
Yep.
If everybody goes and sees them as an influencer, does even a small thing,
Yep.
our world will be a beautiful place for next generations to come.
Absolutely, I agree with you, and that's my goal. It's the same thing, that I also want to help as many people as I can, and that's how it is basically. That's how we also I'm from the same school basically.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/rajmehta33. That's again youtube.com/rajmehta33. Until next time, have a great week.